Thank you, Sundar, and thanks for inviting me to speak to a very, very young audience. And I always believe I have to go here and being a learned man, because I believe 60% of India is below 30 years of age. And unless we don't understand the youth, we will not understand. So we believe in a strong model that we have to learn with everything which we do. So I've come here to spend a day in Coimbatore after maybe 11, 12 years. And I've come here to learn from you all. So I'll try to make this into an interactive session, continuing with the theme of rewriting rules. So I'm going to challenge a lot of thoughts. I think I've been given a subject to speak on inclusive growth. And to be very honest, I never understood the meaning of inclusive growth. And what does inclusive growth means? I think it's whether it's an economic denominator of everybody should grow, or whether it's emotional denominator of person should grow emotionally, or it should be happiness, or it's a human development growth. So I didn't get the answer, but I think this question is being asked by all the political parties and our prime ministers and all the chief ministers of inclusive growth. I believe inclusive growth begins at home. I don't know how many people have read my book. I have defined India into 3 parts. I call it India 1, India 2 and India 3. There are 3 kinds of people in India. India 1 is the aspirational class. They are the people who employ people to serve them. They are the people who are living in cities, they are urban, they are modern, they have global aspirations, or their aspirations are developing. But anybody who has a domestic help, I call them India 1. That's around 11% of the population. And then there is India 2. Probably the people who serve us, the drivers, the watchmen, the liftmen, the house help, and many, many people who works to make our life better than what it is in terms of living our life. I think for every one India 1, there are 3 India 2 people who are helping us to live a better life. And then there is India 3. Basically, they are the farm laborers, workers, and a lot of construction workers struggling to make their life go. So if you look at these 3 Indias, I think what I believe, if we have to look at inclusive growth, India 1 will have to give more money to India 2. And unfortunately, India 1 doesn't give money to India 2. So that's the problem. I think if we all start recognizing that India 2, we have to develop this people, the people who help us to live a better life, and we give them all the security, including emotional security, including learning, including development, including taking care of their family, education, everything, I think India can see inclusive growth. So it's again a contrarian view of growth. But we have a very interesting model where we follow. I think a lot of people are thinking India will become a superpower, an economic superpower. I think India might be the 5th, 6th largest economy in the world in terms of GDP, because of $1 trillion GDP now. It took us 60 years to achieve $1 trillion of GDP. Maybe another 8 years to achieve another $1 trillion of GDP. But if you look at 1.2 billion people, our per capita GDP is probably not so high. If you look at our Human Development Index, we are very, very far behind. We have not measured our happiness quotient. Maybe we are very happy without the per capita income being very high. So one doesn't know how to measure India in terms of economic power, in what sense. We studied, we have a model coming out of mythology again, and we call it a model called LSD. LSD is L is equal to Lakshmi, S is equal to Saraswati, and D is equal to Durga. Every leader or a country has this model. If you look at the most evolved country in the world, US, America, in terms of Lakshmi, they manage virtually every funds in the world. They are the fund managers of the world. They invest money. They have created a financial system and financial markets through which they control everything. So they are very, very strong on Lakshmi. If you look at Saraswati, all the thought leaders, I think, in the world comes out of the schools which America has created. So they spread their knowledge, their wisdom into Indian schools as well as every school in the world. So that's how they lead the world. And D is equal to Durga. Durga is equal to power. Durga is equal to recognition, significance. I think the amount of arms, ammunitions, and geopolitical leadership they have, nobody can touch them. Now let's look at India. Lakshmi, not there. Saraswati, non-existent. In a sense, we are just copying and aping everything which is happening in the world. I will come to the B-school phenomena subsequently in terms of rewriting rules. In terms of Durga, I think even Nepal can bully us at a time. So I don't think so we are there. We don't have any thought leadership in the country. And we are talking of becoming a superpower. So I think we need to do a lot. What I think India, unfortunately, is an electrocracy, what we call a democracy. So we are only looking at incremental changes. We want to change a little. We want to do something. And if there is a road which comes into any village or any town, we are happy. There is a pool which has come in, we are more than happy. I think India needs a transformational change. We need a transformational change in our education system, which was designed by Britishers to create slaves and clerks. We are still working on that system, and I'm standing in one school out here which might be working on that system. We need to change a lot of thinking in terms of how do we develop original thoughts. India is a very different country, emerging in a different era at a different time with 1.2 billion people. The 1.2 billion people, we need different solutions. And you can't get solutions from the West. How do you develop your own solutions? Without thinking, the solutions won't come about. And without only incremental thinking will not take us anywhere. We need transformational thinking, and transformational thinking can only be brought through education. It can be brought through the youth and the power of the youth. It's all about how do you open the thoughts and minds of Indian youth. How can they accept new things? How can they become different than what they are? I think that's what probably is required in this country, that we need a transformational change. But transformational change also brings about coming out of your comfort zone. Because we are very happy. We don't want to become uncomfortable. And if there will be any change, it will bring discomfort. And in a political system, in our political system, discomfort probably will result into losing votes. So I think we are going to be a victim of incremental change, and incremental change will be a long time, because India is a very deep-rooted culture and deep-rooted society, probably one of the oldest civilization. If you look at US, only a 400-year-old civilization. They could think everything and redesign their entire country based on these 3 pillars of LSD. I think India will need a new model. I don't have the model, but I believe we need to be there. We love praising ourselves in every forum. We love somebody praising us, and we love saying that we love you, Mr. Bush. So that's what India is. We behave like gulams. We behave like we pay obeisance to the masters, and we don't believe we are the masters. So I think we need to improve our belief system that we can also do it. We have the power. We have the strength. I believe the world's best university, probably in terms of learning and teaching, was created in India. That was Nalanda. I think if you look at the Stanford model of teaching today, it's a great inspiration from Nalanda. It's a multidisciplinary school wherein the idea is to open up the imagination of a student so that he can absorb quite a lot.